The iron gates groaned. A chill wind whipped through the trees. John shivered, pulling his coat tighter. Blackwood Manor loomed above, a silhouette against the stormy sky. He'd heard whispers in the village, tales of shadows and screams. John, a man of logic, dismissed them as superstition. Yet standing here now, a shiver ran down his spine. The air felt heavy, burdened with unseen eyes. He steeled his nerves, reminding himself why he was here, to write about the manor's enigmatic owner, Lord Blackwood. John approached the heavy oak door, its surface weathered and scratched. He raised a hand and knocked. The sound echoed through the silence. He waited, heart pounding, but there was no answer. He tried again, this time with more force. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing a sliver of darkness within. A frail woman stood in the doorway, her face etched with worry lines. "You must be Mr. John," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "The master awaits." She led him inside, her footsteps silent on the thick carpets. John took in the grand entrance hall, dark wood paneling, faded portraits staring down from the walls. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows. The air hung heavy with the scent of dust and decay. They reached a study, its shelves overflowing with ancient books. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat Lord Blackwood. He was a man of sharp angles, sharp cheekbones, a sharp nose, and eyes that seemed to pierce through John. "Welcome," Lord Blackwood said, his voice deep and resonant. "I trust your journey was pleasant?" John assured him it was, though the unsettling atmosphere made it anything but. Days turned into weeks as John settled into life at Blackwood Manor. He spent his days interviewing Lord Blackwood, trying to unravel the enigma that was the man. Lord Blackwood spoke of his philanthropic work, his dedication to justice and righteousness. Yet there was a darkness behind his eyes, a haunted look that John couldn't quite place. He learned of Lord Blackwood's wife, a reclusive woman who spent most of her days confined to her room. He caught only fleeting glimpses of her, a pale, ethereal figure gliding through the darkened corridors. As the days turned into nights, John became aware of strange occurrences. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, whispers that ceased the moment he turned his head. Floorboards creaked outside his room, though he knew himself to be alone on that floor. Once, he woke to the sound of chanting, low and rhythmic, coming from somewhere deep within the house. He tried to dismiss it all as his imagination, but a seed of doubt had been planted. One evening, while exploring the manor's vast library, John stumbled upon a hidden alcove. Inside, he found a collection of leather-bound journals. Curiosity got the better of him, and he began to read. The journals belonged to Lord Blackwood's ancestor, a man consumed by the occult. He wrote of dark rituals, of pacts made with entities from beyond the veil, and then John came across a name that sent shivers down his spine: the Mambo. The Mambo, according to the journal, was a powerful demon, a spirit of vengeance and wrath. It could be summoned through a ritual, bound to the will of the summoner. But the price of its power was steep, a life for a life. John slammed the journal shut, his heart pounding in his chest. Could this be the source of Lord Blackwood's haunted look? Had he too made a pact with the Mambo? Fueled by a growing sense of dread, John confronted Lord Blackwood about the journals. To his surprise, Lord Blackwood didn't deny their contents. Instead, he invited John to participate in a séance, a ritual to contact the spirit world. Intrigued but apprehensive, John agreed. They gathered in the grand hall, Lord Blackwood, his wife, the silent maid, and John. The air crackled with anticipation. Lord Blackwood, his voice low and commanding, began the ritual. He chanted in a language John didn't understand, his words echoing through the silent hall. The candles flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The air grew cold, and John felt a presence enter the room, something ancient and powerful. He glanced at the others. Lord Blackwood's face was alight with fervor, his wife's with a strange mix of fear and excitement. But it was the maid who terrified John. Her eyes, usually downcast and meek, were now wide and wild, filled with an unholy glee. The air crackled with energy. The temperature plummeted, chilling John to the bone. He felt a presence, cold and heavy, settle over him. Panic welled up in his chest. This was madness, he realized, pure and utter madness. He tried to stand, to break free from the circle, but an unseen force held him down. He looked at Lord Blackwood, his face contorted in a grimace of concentration. Then it happened. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. Screams erupted from the darkness, high-pitched and filled with terror. John thrashed against the unseen force, his heart pounding against his ribs. He could hear movement around him, whispers that seemed to slither through the darkness. Then, as quickly as it began, it stopped. Light flooded the room. John blinked, trying to adjust his eyes. He was lying on the cold stone floor, his body aching. He looked around, his heart still racing. Lord Blackwood was gone. So was his wife. Only the maid remained, her eyes downcast, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. John stumbled to his feet, his mind reeling. What had happened? Where were Lord Blackwood and his wife? He found Lord Blackwood in his study, slumped over his desk, a single bullet wound in his temple. A suicide note lay beside him, the handwriting shaky but clear. "The Mambo demands its due," it read. "I have lived a life of righteousness, but even the purest soul can be stained by darkness. Forgive me." John sank into a chair, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and horror. He had stumbled upon a darkness far greater than he could have imagined. John, desperate for answers, searched the manor from top to bottom. He found a hidden door behind a bookshelf in the library, a door that led down into the cold, damp depths of the manor. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay and something else, something ancient and evil. He followed the narrow passage, his heart pounding in his chest, until he reached a heavy wooden door. He pushed it open and gasped. He stood at the entrance of a large circular chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols and diagrams, glowing faintly in the dim light. In the center of the room, an altar stood bathed in an eerie green light. Bones, both human and animal, were scattered around its base. A chill ran down John's spine. This was no ordinary room. This was a place of power, a place of darkness. As John's eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw her. The maid stood before the altar, her back to him. She was chanting, her voice low and guttural, the same chanting John had heard nights before. She wore a long, flowing robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. As she turned, John stifled a gasp. Her eyes, usually downcast and meek, were now blazing with an unearthly light. "You," John breathed, his voice hoarse. "You were in on it all along." The maid smiled, a slow, predatory smile that sent chills down John's spine. "The master was a fool," she said, her voice echoing strangely in the chamber. "He thought he could control the Mambo, use its power for his own righteous purposes. But the Mambo is not so easily controlled." She took a step toward John, her eyes never leaving his. He paid the price for his arrogance. "And you?" John asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What will you do with the Mambo's power?" The maid laughed, a high-pitched, chilling sound. "I am no fool like the master," she said. "I do not seek to control the Mambo. I embrace its power. Become one with it." She raised her hands above her head, and the symbols on the walls flared to life. The air crackled with energy, and John felt a crushing weight press down on him. "But the price," John gasped, struggling to breathe. "A life for a life." The maid smiled, her teeth gleaming in the green light. "Indeed," she said, "but the Mambo is merciful. It does not discriminate. Any life will do." Her eyes, now glowing with an eerie green light, fixed on John. He understood. He was the sacrifice. John stumbled back, fear gripping his throat. He tried to run, but the weight pinning him down intensified. He was trapped. The maid advanced, her eyes burning into his soul. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the end, but it never came. Instead, he heard a scream filled with unimaginable pain. He opened his eyes to see the maid writhing on the ground, her body engulfed in a blinding green light. The symbols on the walls pulsed and throbbed, as if alive. Then, silence. The green light faded and the maid lay still. John, his body still trembling, slowly got to his feet. The air felt lighter, cleaner. The oppressive weight that had held him captive was gone. He looked down at the maid's body, her face twisted in a mask of agony. She was dead. But how? He didn't know, and he realized with chilling certainty he never would. He was free, but forever marked by the horrors he had witnessed. He fled Blackwood Manor, leaving behind the secrets and the shadows. He would never forget the Mambo, the demon who demanded a life for a life, and he would always wonder in the darkest corners of his mind whose life had truly been claimed that night.